The red-eye flight from Denver to Lax cuts through the midnight darkness. Marcus Rivera adjusts his camera one last time, ready to film his arrival content. Through the small airplane window, city lights twinkle like scattered diamonds below. But as the plane begins its descent, something shifts in his vision. The runway lights blur and twist into warning signals. Metal screams against asphalt. Sparks fly in slow motion. The landing gear collapses like broken bones. Marcus gasps, his camera trembling in his hands. Marcus blinks hard, his heart hammering against his ribs. The vision dissolves, replaced by the mundane hum of the aircraft's engines. Around him, passengers sleep or scroll through their phones, oblivious to what he just witnessed. The taste of copper fills his mouth as he grips his camera tighter. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into Los Angeles International Airport. The captain's voice crackles through the intercom. Weather conditions are clear, but we're experiencing some minor technical issues with our landing systems. Technical issues. Marcus's blood runs cold. He fumbles for his phone, fingers shaking as he texts Sarah. Something's wrong with this flight. I saw it crash. The landing gear failed. The response comes quickly. You're being dramatic again. Land safely and get some sleep. But Marcus knows what he saw wasn't imagination. The metallic screech still echoes in his ears. The smell of burning fuel lingers in his nostrils. He has experienced these visions before. Fleeting glimpses that saved him from a collapsing hotel balcony in Thailand, a riptide in Costa Rica. Each time, he dismissed them as anxiety until they proved terrifyingly accurate. The plane shudders slightly as they hit turbulence over the San Gabriel Mountains. Through the window, the sprawling lights of Los Angeles stretch endlessly, but Marcus only sees twisted metal and emergency vehicles. His reflection stares back from the glass, pale, wide-eyed, haunted. "Excuse me," he whispers to the flight attendant passing by. "Is everything okay with the landing gear?" She smiles professionally. "Everything's fine, sir. We'll be landing in about 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Marcus counts each second, watching the altitude decrease on the seatback monitor. 15,000 feet. At 5,000 feet, Marcus makes his decision. He presses the call button frantically. "I need to get off this plane," he tells the flight attendant when she arrives. "There's going to be an accident." Her expression shifts from confusion to concern. "Sir, that's not possible. We're already in our landing approach." "You don't understand." Marcus's voice rises, drawing stares from nearby passengers. "The landing gear is going to fail. I've seen it happen." The flight attendant glances toward the cockpit, then back at Marcus. "I'll need you to remain calm and stay seated with your seatbelt fastened." As she walks away, presumably to alert the crew about the agitated passenger, Marcus feels the plane bank left for its final approach. The runway lights appear ahead, perfectly aligned. Everything looks normal to everyone else, but Marcus sees only catastrophe waiting. The engines change pitch, preparing for landing. Marcus closes his eyes and grips his armrests, bracing for impact that may never come, or may arrive exactly as he envisioned. The plane touches down smoothly on runway 24R, tires kissing asphalt with barely a bump. Marcus remains rigid in his seat as passengers around him begin gathering their belongings, chatting about their plans in Los Angeles. No screaming metal. No sparks. No emergency vehicles racing across the tarmac. "See? Everything's fine," the elderly woman next to him says kindly, noticing his white-knuckle grip on the armrests. Flying safer than driving. Marcus forces a smile but can't shake the lingering dread. As he deplanes, he half expects alarms to sound, but LAX operates with its usual controlled chaos. Travelers rushing past with rolling suitcases. The smell of coffee and fast food from terminal restaurants. Announcements echoing in multiple languages. Outside, the California night air is warm and tinged with smog. Marcus orders a rideshare, his hands still trembling as he types Sarah's address in Beverly Hills. The vision felt so real. The grinding metal, the shower of sparks, the way the plane tilted sickeningly to one side as the landing gear crumpled. "Rough flight?" his Uber driver asks, glancing in the rearview mirror. "Something like that," Marcus mutters, filming the passing LAX terminals through the window. Even now, documenting his experience feels automatic. His followers would eat up content about a mysterious premonition, but something holds him back from posting. The 405 freeway is relatively clear to Mesrin's blurring past. Marcus tries to shake off his unease, focusing on editing tomorrow's content from his Colorado hiking trip. But every few minutes, his gaze drifts to aircraft overhead, red and white lights moving across the star-hidden sky like mechanical constellations. Sarah's house sits in the hills above Sunset Boulevard, a mid-century modern gem with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She's waiting on the front steps, her expression mixing relief and exasperation. "You look terrible," she says, wrapping him in a quick hug. "What happened to living your best life and embracing every adventure?" "I saw the plane crash, Sarah, before it happened." Marcus follows her inside, where the familiar scent of jasmine candles and fresh coffee grounds him slightly. The landing gear failed completely. "I watched it happen." Sarah pours 2 glasses of wine, studying his face. "But the plane landed fine, right? You're here, in one piece, being dramatic as usual. This isn't about content or followers," Marcus insists. "These visions, they mean something. Remember Thailand? I saw that balcony collapse 3 seconds before it happened. Coincidence? Lucky reflexes?" But Sarah's voice wavers slightly. She was there in Bangkok, saw how Marcus had suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her away from the hotel balcony just as the rusted supports gave way. "You're stressed, overworked. When's the last time you took a real break?" Marcus walks to the windows, looking out at the city sprawling below. Somewhere out there, planes continue landing at LAX every few minutes. The thought makes his chest tight. "I need to avoid airports for a while. Maybe do some local content around LA. Good idea. Ground yourself, literally." Sarah joins him at the window. "Though you know your audience loves the travel stuff." As if summoned by their conversation, the distant roar of jet engines fills the air. A red-eye flight passes overhead, navigation lights blinking against the dark sky. Marcus watches until it disappears toward LAX, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. "I'm going to shower and try to sleep," he says, but knows rest won't come easily. The vision replays behind his closed eyelids, metal screaming, sparks flying, the sickening moment when everything goes wrong. In the guest room, surrounded by familiar comforts, Marcus finally allows himself to believe the immediate danger has passed. But deep down, a voice whispers that some fates can't be outrun. They merely wait for another opportunity. 3 days pass in deceptive normalcy. Marcus films content around Los Angeles, sunrise hikes in Griffith Park, food tours in Koreatown, sunset shots from Malibu beaches. His followers notice nothing unusual in his perfectly curated posts, but Sarah watches him flinch every time a plane passes overhead. "You're getting paranoid," she says over breakfast at a trendy cafe in West Hollywood. "Yesterday, you crossed the street to avoid walking past that airplane mural." Marcus pushes eggs around his plate, appetite absent. It's not paranoia when you've actually seen what's coming. He shows her his phone screen, a flight tracking app he's obsessively checking. "Look how many planes are landing at LAX right now. Dozens every hour. And they're all landing safely, Marcus. Just like yours did." Before he can respond, Sarah's phone buzzes with a notification. "Your agent called again. That documentary crew wants to meet tomorrow. They reflying in from New York specifically to discuss the travel series. Cancel it." "What?" "This could be huge for your career. Netflix level huge." Sarah's voice rises slightly. They're offering to fly you to their headquarters for follow-up meetings. I said cancel it. Marcus stands abruptly, the metal chairs scraping against concrete. No flights. No airports. Not for a while. That afternoon, while filming B-roll footage near Venice Beach, Marcus notices something unsettling. Every location he chooses seems to have aircraft in the background. Planes heading to VOX, small private aircraft from Santa Monica Airport, even vintage warbirds performing stunts over the Pacific. It's as if the sky itself is conspiring to remind him of his vision. You're seeing patterns that aren't there, Sarah insists when he mentions it. Los Angeles is under multiple flight paths. Of course you'll see planes, but Marcus knows better. The sound of jet engines follows him like a soundtrack to his fears. Even at night, lying in Sarah's guest room, he hears the distant rumble of red-eye flights climbing into the darkness. Sometimes he dreams of twisted metal and failing systems, waking with the taste of jet fuel in his mouth. On day 4, while editing footage in Sarah's home office, Marcus receives an unexpected message. The sender is at pilothays_official, a verified account with 50,000 followers focused on aviation education. Saw your latest posts from LAX arrival. I was your captain that night. Flight 847 from Denver. Everything okay? Your behavior on board was ... concerning. Marcus stares at the message, remembering the captain's voice announcing minor technical issues. His fingers hover over the keyboard before typing back. What technical issues exactly? The response comes quickly. Landing gear sensors were showing intermittent faults. Nothing serious, but it made for a tense approach. We had backup systems ready. How did you know about the potential problem? A chill runs down Marcus's spine. The vision hadn't been wrong. There had been actual landing gear issues. The failure he witnessed would have happened under slightly different circumstances. The line between premonition and paranoia suddenly blurs. Just a feeling, Marcus types back. Do you ever get premonitions about flights? 25 years of flying teaches you to trust your instincts. But I've never had a passenger predict technical issues before takeoff. That was ... unusual. Marcus sets his phone aside, hands trembling. The vision was real, the danger genuine. He'd somehow seen a possible future that was averted by luck or skill or divine intervention. But if that flight could have crashed, what other disasters might be lurking in his future? Outside, another plane passes overhead, its engine noise seeming louder than before. Marcus counts the seconds until it fades, already dreading the next one. The sky, once a symbol of freedom and adventure for his travel content, has become a source of constant anxiety. Sarah finds him an hour later, staring out the window at the endless stream of aircraft heading toward LAX. You're scaring me, she says quietly. This isn't like you. Maybe this is exactly like me, Marcus replies. Maybe I've been running from something inevitable, and it's finally catching up. A week into his self-imposed ground exile, Marcus receives news that forces his hand. His grandmother in Chicago has suffered a stroke, not life-threatening, but serious enough that family's gathering. The hospital calls came through Sarah, who gently delivers the message over morning coffee. She's asking for you specifically, Sarah says. Your mom says Grandma Rosa keeps mentioning your travel videos. How proud she is. Marcus stares at his phone screen showing flight options to O'Hare. Every route involves climbing 35,000 feet into the sky, trusting his life to mechanical systems that can fail in countless ways. I'll drive. It's only 30 hours. Marcus, be reasonable. She might not have long. Sarah's voice carries unusual urgency. One flight. A few hours. What are the odds of something happening twice? That evening, Marcus finds himself at Captain Hayes' suggested meeting place, a pilot bar near Alex called the Hangar. The walls are covered with vintage aviation posters and model aircraft, the air thick with the conversations of off-duty crew members. Hayes sits in a corner booth, still wearing his uniform after a Denver to Lax run. "You look like hell," Hayes says without preamble as Marcus approaches. "When's the last time you slept?" "Sleep's overrated." Marcus slides into the booth, acutely aware of the airplane models suspended from the ceiling. "Tell me about Flight 847. What really happened?" Hayes studies him over his beer. "You first. How did you know about the landing gear?" Marcus considers lying, creating some rational explanation. Instead, he tells the truth about the vision, the screaming metal, the sparks, the collapsed landing gear. Hayes listens without interruption, his expression shifting from skepticism to something approaching recognition. 23 years ago, Hayes says quietly, "I was co-pilot on a flight from Phoenix to Denver. Clear weather, routine approach. But something felt wrong. Not equipment readings, just ... A feeling. I convinced the captain to execute a go-around. We circled back for another approach. What happened? Nothing. Perfect landing the second time. But maintenance found stress fractures in the landing gear assembly during the post-flight inspection. If we'd completed that first approach," Hayes shakes his head. "Sometimes you just know." A plane roars overhead, following the LAX approach path. Both men instinctively look up, tracking its path through the bar's windows until it disappears behind buildings. "Your grandmother," Hayes says, changing subjects. "Chicago, right? I'm deadheading to O'Hare tomorrow morning if you want to ride along. Jump seat in the cockpit. You can watch every system, every decision." Sometimes facing the fear helps. Marcus's immediate instinct is refusal, but Hayes continues. "Or you can drive 30 hours and maybe arrive too late. Fear's a useful emotion, son, but it shouldn't make your choices for you." That night, Marcus lies awake in Sarah's guest room, listening to the steady stream of red-eye flights overhead. Each engine roar seems to carry a message, some inviting, others warning. His phone buzzes with updates from Chicago. Grandma Rosa is stable, but asking for him repeatedly. At 3 a.m., he makes his decision. He texts Hayes, "What time do I need to be at the airport?" The response comes immediately, 0600 hours. Employee, entrance. Bring ID and be ready for security screening. Sarah finds him packing at dawn, moving with the mechanical efficiency of someone who's made peace with a difficult choice. "You're really doing this?" she asks. Grandma Rosa used to tell me stories about her flight from Italy to America in 1952. 17 years old, speaking no English, trusting everything to a machine she didn't understand. Marcus zips his carry-on bag. "If she could do that, I can handle one flight to Chicago. And if the vision comes back?" Marcus meets her eyes in the mirror. "Then at least I'll know I tried to live instead of just surviving." Outside, the morning sun illuminates contrails crisscrossing the sky like a roadmap to destinations unknown. Marcus watches a plane banking toward Lax, its wings catching the golden light. For the first time in days, the sight doesn't fill him with dread. But deep in his chest, a small voice whispers that some appointments with fate can't be postponed indefinitely, only rescheduled. Lax at sunrise feels different from the inside. Marcus follows Hayes through employee corridors that smell of jet fuel and industrial cleaning supplies, past mechanics heading to work and flight crews wheeling their bags toward gates. The familiar chaos of the passenger terminals seems distant here, replaced by the purposeful efficiency of aviation professionals. "First time in a cockpit?" Hayes asks as they approach the aircraft, a Boeing 737-800 being prepped for the Chicago run. Unless flight simulators count, Marcus adjusts his camera, having decided to document this journey. Facing fears makes for compelling content, and his followers have been asking about his recent ground-based posts. The cockpit is smaller than expected, a cramped space filled with switches, displays, and indicators that somehow orchestrate the miracle of flight. Hayes introduces him to First Officer Jennifer Park, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s, who barely looks up from her pre-flight checklist. "Your nervous passenger from last week?" Park asks Hayes, glancing at Marcus. "Heard you had a premonition about landing gear." "Something like that." Marcus settles into the jump seat behind the pilot positions. Through the windscreen, ground crews service the aircraft with practiced precision. No sign of the mechanical failures from his vision, but his pulse still quickens. "System's looking good," Hayes announces, working through startup procedures. Ground crew reports no anomalies. Weather's clear to Chicago with light headwinds. Marcus films the takeoff preparation, his camera capturing the methodical process that transforms a stationary machine into something capable of defying gravity. Every switch activation, every radio call, every instrument check builds toward the moment when they'll leave the ground. Lax ground. United 1847 ready to taxi. Hayes speaks into his headset. The familiar flight number makes Marcus pause. 1847? Like my flight from Denver? Coincidence. We're not superstitious in this business. But Hayes glances back with something unreadable in his expression. The taxi to runway 25 liters takes 12 minutes, passing terminals where passengers wait for their own journeys. Marcus spots travelers through the windows, some excited, others nervous, all trusting their lives to the same technology surrounding him now. The weight of that collective faith feels heavier from inside the machine. United 1847, cleared for takeoff, runway 25L, comes the controller's voice through the radio. Park advances the throttles, and the engine's roar fills the cockpit. Marcus grips his camera tighter as the aircraft accelerates, the runway markers blurring past. At 140 knots, Hayes pulls back on the yoke, and Los Angeles drops away beneath them. The climb is smooth, the aircraft rising through scattered clouds toward cruising altitude. Marcus forces himself to breathe normally, watching Hayes and Park monitor dozens of systems with casual expertise. Everything appears normal, but the vision from his earlier flight lurks in his memory like a dark promise. "You okay back there?" Park asks during the level-off at 37,000 feet. "Better than expected." Marcus adjusts his camera angle, filming the endless expanse of clouds below. From this height, the Earth looks impossibly distant, their survival dependent on the continuous functioning of thousands of components. Halfway to Chicago, turbulence begins. Light chop at first, then moderate bumps that rock the aircraft. Marcus watches Hayes and Park maintain their relaxed professionalism, but his grip on the camera tightens. Through the windscreen, darker clouds loom ahead. Chicago Center, United 1847, requesting deviation south for weather. Hayes radios. United 1847, approved as requested. Advise when able to resume course. The aircraft banks left, avoiding the worst of the storm cells. Lightning flickers in the distance, nature's reminder of the hostile environment surrounding their aluminum sanctuary. Marcus films the electrical display, but his hands shake slightly. Grandma Rosa flew through weather like this with no radar, no modern navigation, he murmurs, steadying himself with family history. Different generation, Hayes agrees. They trusted the pilots and the machine. Sometimes that's all you can do. An hour out of O'Hare, Hayes begins the descent briefing. Marcus listens to the methodical discussion of approach procedures, landing runway assignments, potential complications. The systematic preparation contrasts sharply with his earlier vision of chaos and mechanical failure. O'Hare approach, United 1847 descending to 10,000. Park radios. Below them, Chicago sprawls in all directions. Lake Michigan stretching to the eastern horizon. The city where his grandmother waits, possibly dying, possibly already gone. Marcus realizes he's been so focused on his fear of flying that he'd nearly forgotten why this journey was necessary. Gear down, flaps 30, Hayes announces as they align with runway 10R. The landing gear extends with mechanical precision, No screaming metal, no system failures. Marcus holds his breath anyway, waiting for his vision to manifest. But the approach continues normally, the runway growing larger through the windscreen. At 200 feet, Hayes calls out, "Stabilized," and Marcus knows they're going to land safely. The vision was wrong, or averted, or never meant for this flight. The main gear touches down gently, followed by the nose wheel. Reverse thrust slows their momentum as they roll out on the Chicago runway. Marcus exhales fully for what feels like the first time in hours. "Welcome to Chicago," Hayes says with a smile. "How was your first cockpit ride?" The hospital corridor smells of antiseptic and anxiety. Marcus hurries past waiting families toward the cardiac wing, his camera forgotten in his bag for once. The flight to Chicago feels like a distant victory compared to what might wait in room 314. Grandma. Rosa looks impossibly small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that monitor her vital signs with electronic precision. But her eyes brighten when she sees Marcus, and her voice, though weak, carries familiar warmth. "My traveling grandson," she whispers in accented English. "Show me your latest adventure." Marcus pulls up his phone, scrolling past the airplane footage to find recent hiking content from Colorado. As Rosa watches his mountain sunrise video, machines beep steadily around them, marking time they don't have. "Beautiful," she says, "just like the mountains. Near my village in Italy." "Tell me about your flight to America again," Marcus requests, settling into the bedside chair. The story has evolved over decades, but its core remains unchanged. A young woman's courage in the face of the unknown. Scared? Of course I was scared. Rosa's eyes focus on memories from 1952. Big airplane, bigger than anything I'd ever seen. But fear. Fear is just tomorrow's worry stealing today's joy. You understand this, yes? Before Marcus can answer, his phone buzzes with a call from Hayes. "Everything okay with your grandmother?" She's beautiful. Tired, but beautiful. Good to hear. Listen, I'm deadheading back to Lax tomorrow afternoon if you need a ride. Same aircraft, same route? Marcus looks at Rosa, who has dozed off mid-conversation. The machines continue their electronic vigil, but something in their rhythm seems less urgent than before. "I might take you up on that." That evening, Rosa rallies enough for dinner with the family. 3 generations gather around her bed, sharing stories and photos on various devices. Marcus films bits of the conversation, capturing his grandmother's laugh when his young cousin attempts to speak Italian. "You know what I want to see before I die?" Rosa asks during a quiet moment. "One of your airplane videos. Inside the, how you say, cockpit." Marcus shows her the footage from that morning's flight. Hayes and Park working through their procedures. The smooth takeoff from Lax, the view of Chicago approaching through scattered clouds. Rosa watches with fascination, occasionally asking questions about the instruments. "This is how I came to America," she says. "Not so many computers, but the same brave pilots, the same miracle of flying." Late that night, after the family has gone home to rest, Marcus sits alone with Rosa. Her breathing is steady but labored, each breath a conscious effort. The cardiac monitor shows an irregular rhythm that concerns the nurses. "I have to go back tomorrow," Marcus says quietly. "Work obligations. Of course you do. Life doesn't stop for old ladies in hospitals." Rosa's hand finds his surprisingly warm and steady. "But Marcus, let fear make you small. I flew across an ocean to live my dreams. You fly around the world to share yours. At 3 Rosa's condition deteriorates suddenly. Marcus calls the family while nurses work to stabilize her, but the machines tell their own story. Her heart, weakened by decades of life and love, simply can't keep pace anymore. She passes peacefully at dawn, surrounded by 3 generations of the family she created by boarding that flight in 1952. Marcus holds her hand as the cardiac monitor S beep becomes a steady tone, then silence. The funeral is scheduled for 3 days later, but Marcus realizes he can't stay. Rosa wouldn't want him to pause his life for extended mourning. She who had taught him that living was the best tribute to the dead. Hayes meets him at O'Hare for the return flight, taking one look at his face and offering quiet condolences. "She was proud of you, wasn't she?" "She died watching airplane videos on my phone," Marcus says, settling into the cockpit jump seat again. Said it reminded her of her own brave journey. The return flight to Lax is turbulent, spring storms building across the Midwest. But Marcus feels strangely calm as he films the lightning dancing around their aircraft. The vision that had terrified him seems distant now, replaced by Rose's words about not letting fear make him small. As they descend into Los Angeles, Marcus spots the runway where his original premonition had played out. But instead of seeing twisted metal and emergency vehicles, he sees opportunity. Thousands of successful landings every day, millions of passengers trusting their dreams to aircraft just like this one. "Gear down, flaps 30, Hayes announces, beginning the familiar landing sequence. This time, Marcus doesn't hold his breath. He films the approach instead, capturing the moment when the runway lights align perfectly ahead of them. The landing is smooth, professional, unremarkable in the best possible way. But as they taxi toward the terminal, Marcus notices something in the distance that makes his blood run cold. A small private aircraft is approaching runway 24R, the same runway from his vision. Its landing gear appears to be retracting instead of extending, sparks beginning to shower from its belly as it prepares for an emergency landing. The vision wasn't wrong. It was just meant for someone else. Marcus reaches for his camera, then stops. Some moments are too sacred for content. Instead, he watches in silence as emergency vehicles race toward what might be tragedy or triumph. Understanding finally, the premonitions aren't about changing fate. They're about choosing how to live while it unfolds. In the distance, airport sirens begin to wail, carrying their message across the tarmac where dreams and fears intersect at 200 miles per hour. To be continued. What other visions await those brave enough to see them?